Hello, BookTube. I got a little more mail, two more periodicals I thought we'd walk through very briefly. The first one, well, first one's difficult. The first one couldn't help but be they're all listening to you. Every video you do this now. Her little protest of me making videos. God knows what she's going to do if I ever end up going out. But anyway, the first of the two periodicals that I got that I want to show you is National Geographic. One of the best magazines that exists. And their latest issue is a flip issue, much like the flip science fiction novels that one of you sent me, where you get it printed in one direction halfway and then you flip it and you print it in the other direction for two separate issues, basically. And it's all about the fate of the planet. The first one, the positive side, is how we saved the world, a look at 2070. And then the negative side is how we lost the planet, also a look at 2070. And you can read in either direction. And I have pored over this issue now. I at first concentrated, of course, on how we lost the planet, because there's no mention made anywhere in that half of the issue about zoonosis, about new and virulent viral plagues. Of course, there isn't. This issue was fact-checked to death and put to bed and sent out long before the world changed. And this is kind of the thing that I'm talking about when I mention with periodicals and even with books, that it's hard for me to concentrate on the ones that are pre-COVID-19, because I know that they will never have another issue that ignores COVID-19. The next issue of National Geographic will almost certainly be entirely devoted to this pandemic. And same thing with everything else. Same thing with all of the literary journals that I follow. There are faint, tiny, preliminary hints and notes now, but it will swamp the coverage in the next issue or the next run if the printing presses haven't been shut down. So of course, I scoured the first half of this, the negative half of this first, about climate change and plastic in the oceans and mega storms and whatnot, and knew beforehand. I knew before I looked at it that it wouldn't mention pandemics. It's talking about the world, after all, not just one species on the planet. But I found myself, as time went on, grasping more firmly to the positive side of this, because it's full of hope. It's full of ways in which optimism and innovation can solve some problems, bring species back from the brink, reclaim environmental degradation. And I don't know whether or not any of that's going to happen, but I found myself liking that half of this issue a lot more. But then the other thing I got was literary. It was the London Review of Books. And there was quite a lot of good stuff in here that I thought we'd just walk through. The first one being a long piece by Julian Barnes on the writer Huysmans, who wrote, it's a book, Modern Art, that has a new translation for Daedalus Books by Brendan King. And it's very long. It's a very long piece, goes on for page after page after page. And it's very, very good. And it's very good in a way that made me want to fire up the old soapbox, because it's very good on a paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence level that Julian Barnes' fiction never is. And it makes me wish, as I always do, that maybe there wasn't such a great disproportion between the remuneration of fiction in the market and the remuneration of nonfiction. It would be great if Julian Barnes had maybe been nudged and encouraged 30 years ago to make his career writing nonfiction instead of writing fiction. And then David Runciman does a quick piece on the initial London response, the initial response of Parliament to the beginnings of the COVID-19 epidemic, and there's another one in here as well on the beginnings of it in Italy. But But these are the sorts of things that are going to be badly outdated before they get very far at all. So I'll read them, but more in an archival sense than out of any active interest. For that, I'm relying on Twitter, a horrible, horrible website that brings out the worst in people and that causes people to exaggerate. That is what Twitter is for: is to exaggerate everything and to sound like you're not. You go onto Twitter, you exaggerate everything to the 11th degree while trying to sound like you're being completely level-headed and everyone else is exaggerating, which leads to a lot of disproportion and is designed to get you outrage addicted, so that you can't do without the shredding of your heart muscles in sheer outrage at what you read on Twitter, even though you recognize that it's bad for you. Pure addictive behavior. But Twitter also is the place where people link to accounts, where they link to articles and the latest news and whatnot. And it's important. In a nothing like it has existed. Facebook is a distant second in terms of immediacy. Nothing like it has existed for disseminating information at a time of international crisis. The unfortunate part is that all information is disseminated with equal emphasis. So good information, bad information, blatant lies, propaganda created by bots. And the bots are getting harder and harder to spot. It used to be that it was easy because their grammar was poor, because they were Russian, and also because they had no followers. But plenty of bot farm human creatures have taught bots how to follow each other, so you can't always know. But there were a couple of other things that I wanted to mention here, or maybe there was only one. Oh, there's a review by Rupert Thompson of letters between Carolyn Gordon and Flannery O'Connor that I thought was pretty good. But the main thing for me, the main thing that I enjoyed was a long review by John Guy of The Brothers York by Thomas Penn. He also reviews Richard III, The Self-Made King by Michael Hicks. I read Michael Hicks's book. John Guy liked it a lot more than I did. And I thought the title, The Self-Made King, was just so howlingly unaware. Either that or the author is gifted with multi-level, fourth-dimensional chess irony that I detected nowhere in his book. Maybe it exists only in his title. To call Richard III a self-made king is just so choice. Yes, if you kill all the other claimants yourself with your own hands, then I guess you are a self-made king. But John Guy is this. This is John Guy, a great historian of Tudor England. I've been rereading this book. And Thomas Penn, the author of The Brothers York, that's this book, which we've seen on this channel. This is forthcoming. I'm not sure. I haven't checked yet. This is a late June release date, but I'm not sure if that's been changed. A lot of pub dates in America are changing. But that's this guy who did The Winter King, a biography of the latter part of the reign of King Henry VII, the founder of the Tudor dynasty. That is crammed. You can't really tell, but it's crammed with clipped reviews. It got reviewed widely, and also it's one of my 2 Henry VII books. So whenever I see something else about Henry VII, I clip it and put it in there. I'm definitely going to clip this piece, but I will put it in what I'm hoping is, I hope that I get the finished copy of The Brothers York. This is the advanced copy, but I really like the finished copy. I'm hoping that doesn't become a casualty of this pandemic. But one way or another, this review by John Guy is very long, and it is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I don't mean that it praises both these books, although it does. It offers very judicious, very believable praise for both these books. But also just the review itself. Just you know right away when you're reading, it's a long, long thing. You know right away when you're reading it that you're in the hands of someone who knows the subject matter as well as the authors of the books. And that is really nice. That is a really nice feeling. You don't always get that, even in a journal like the London Review of Books. So that was my periodical mail. It was the London Review of Books and a dual-themed National Geographic. How we lost the planet and how we saved it. All geared for what the world will be like in 2070, when the pessimistic projections are that most of the places where humans live now will be too hot by 2070 for them to live. So that Phoenix, Arizona, for instance, will have, out of 365 days in the year, 250 something where the temperature is above 117 degrees Fahrenheit. So by far the huge part of the year you won't be able to work, you won't be able to live if you don't have air conditioning, and there are no power farms anywhere in the vicinity that can match the electricity needs that would be needed for air conditioning everything in. You couldn't have road traffic, you couldn't have outside activities. If it's 120 degrees Fahrenheit, you couldn't bring children outside, you couldn't do construction work or anything like that. And the projections for the negative side of 2070 are, of course, they have a little more emphasis today because it feels like we're under the hand of some sort of judgment today. But the positive side, I certainly hope that the positive side wins out. I certainly hope so. But either way, no matter which turns out to be accurate, the National Geographic once again gave me hours and hours of thought-provoking enjoyment, which is what I love it for. So that was my mail today. Just a lonely old coot sharing his mail with you. But I'll wrap this up for now. But if I get more mail that's of interest, I will gladly share it. Thank you, BookTube.